Hello everyone and welcome to another video with me, 320 Sim Pilot. I'm a real world airline pilot, and in today's video, something unusual for you. We're going to be chatting about what we think of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 here at the end of 2024, and also with the imminent release now of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. I'm going to be giving my thoughts over what this simulator has given us and what we've experienced with it over the last few years along with you all, and also talking about the new Flight Simulator, what features I'm excited for, as well as which aircraft and which edition I think most people should really go for if they're going to pick up the new Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. In the meantime, please enjoy this B-roll footage of the Manta Airlines 777-300ER flying a beautiful flight around the Santiago airport in Chile, including the approach, doing an ANAV AR approach into Chile. Something we haven't seen on the channel yet, I don't think. Anyway, let's get started with chatting about it. So this is going to be, like I say, a slightly different video, a bit more a podcasty style video for this one, where we just talk through some of the things that we've seen. So Microsoft Flight Simulator was not actually launched when I launched the channel. So when 320 Sim Pilot was born, we started out with flying on X Plane 11 and the Tolis A321. That was the aircraft that we predominantly flew on the channel for the first few months. That's where we built up the channel, and I think we'd made it through 1,000 subscribers certainly, and the flight sim community was in a relatively small place at that time. There was, of course, the X-Plane community, and there was the P3D, or the old sort of updated version of Microsoft Flight Simulator X. Now, Microsoft Flight Simulator X launched in 2006, if you can believe it, a long time ago. It does feel not so long to me, but there we go, 2006, I remember the release well, and that was a huge deal. And then we haven't had an official Microsoft Flight Simulator until in 2019 they announced Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. So when I started my channel, I was making videos in X-Plane, and that's where we were streaming and everything, and we were often talking about the launch of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. And then before we knew it, in August, it was indeed launched, and there we go, we had Flight Simulator. So how did it go? How was the launch for us in the Flight Sim community and also the wider gaming community? Because, of course, this was a much bigger release than our typical Flight Sim releases. And this is mainly down to the fact it was included in the Xbox Game Pass, so a lot of people had access to the simulator quite early on. Well, I think it was actually an impressive launch of this new simulator. It launched with the most amazing worldwide scenery that we've ever seen in any home simulator, full stop, and I can't hear otherwise about that. I've been blown away every time I've jumped into Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 about the level of detail around the world. And I've said it before many times, but I also think it's the way they've somehow, I don't know whether it's the AI systems they use or whatever it is, the Bing systems that they have, but they've managed to get not only the photo scenery, so the ground is the right colors and textures and so on, but the buildings in each area look right for the area. In FSX and previous sceneries, you had auto-generated scenery that just tended to replicate the same sort of style over and over all over the world, whereas the buildings, if you fly into Rome, if you fly into Los Angeles, if you fly here into Santiago, they resemble the buildings that you would see if you were there, and it gives that sensation of flying over these towns. And it's been an amazing feature of Microsoft Flight Simulator right from the very get-go. That was always fantastic. So that has continued. It missed landmarks and things like that, so some areas were more neglected than others, so we would have beautiful sort of generated scenery but missing some key features, London being a particular one. I remember when the Flight Simulator 2020 launched, but they slowly improved that with the updates, which we'll talk about a bit later. But yeah, photogrammetry also came out for certain towns, and that is really remarkable when you have those 3D buildings right down into detail and specific landmarks or things like specific stadiums and so on, all modelled in the game. Absolutely amazing. Next, the weather. The weather visuals in Flight Simulator 2020, again, right from the get-go, I think have been super, really fantastic. The clouds themselves have gone through various changes, but overall, the way the clouds, as you can see it in the video that you're seeing here, you can see the clouds casting shadows over the ground, and the way the rain would fall, or rainbows could form in rain, and the way you'd have rain coming out the bottom of clouds, always looked absolutely fantastic. Really impressed with that. Clouds themselves did go through some stages of being a bit fuzzy, and then they're sort of recovered again, and they're in a nice place now, I think. So yeah, amazed by the weather visuals. Things like currents on the water surface, so the water didn't look too video gamey but more realistic, were absolutely amazing. And overall, everyone agreed that Microsoft Flight Simulator's visuals have been some of the best ever in any computer game or simulation that anyone's had certainly access to on a home computer. and I can tell you now, it easily trumps any of the full motion simulators I've been in. Those, of course, aren't visual focused, but the graphics are just unbelievable. And what I really like is that they capture that feeling of being there in the aeroplane when the sun's setting over the Alps, or as you're flying into Chile here, or if you're doing a long descent into a summer's evening into Los Angeles. And it's great to know that, therefore, that if you were to fly the simulator into a new town, then that's probably a similar sensation to what you would get if you were operating into there in a real aircraft, which is exactly what we all do Flight Simulator for, right? So that's been absolutely fantastic. One downside at the launch of Flight Simulator 2020, of course, was the default aircraft, in particular the airliners. The general aviation airplanes seemed to be very nice, actually. I enjoyed flying quite a lot of them right from the get-go, but the airliners had a bit of a tough time. They were pretty hard to recommend flying around. You couldn't take them onto VATSIM and fly them with real air traffic controllers or other pilots very easily. They were more of just sort of visual model, and not always a very accurate visual model as well, which was a bit of a shame because they were a nice collection. We had the 747-8, which is relatively rare to see in simulators, the 787-10, which I didn't know at the time, but I was later going to go on to fly in the real world, and of course the A320neo. The A320neo was my particular focus because at the time I was an A320 airline pilot in the real world, and I found the A320 was particularly problematic, perhaps because I flew it in the real world, but also it was actually unflyable, I think, in lots of senses. I remember, I don't know how many remember this, but when Flight Simulator launched and we were flying the A320neo around, it would do things like in the flare, it would just suddenly bank to the right, and all these absolute bizarre behaviours that made it not really stable enough to use for any length of time. I did my very first video with it and managed to do a circuit, but it was still quite a process. And that was where my channel really started to grow. We had a big pickup of viewers join the channel from that point on, and we did our tutorials on the A320neo in Microsoft Flight Simulator. The 747 and the 787 also had missing areas, of course, and the avionics in particular was struggling, as well as the handling. They tended to feel a bit like gliders, actually, like they just had no drag at all, not much weight to them. We had airports included, especially if you bought the upgraded version. So, of course, to get the 787-10, I should have said you had to pay for the premium or the deluxe. I can't remember what they called it now. The higher, more expensive version of Flight Simulator. But that is, of course, what I did as it was part of the channel. And I'm glad I did, because later on it became important to have that 787-10. But airports around the world were varying quality, but I think the ones that were included in the expensive versions of Flight Simulator were very good. Things like the Heathrow were actually really quite usable and very nice and looked very nice. One thing that has bothered me throughout Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020's entire life has been the default airports. If you fly into an airport that you don't have a payware scenery, it wasn't one of their premium airports, or they didn't do specific work on it, and it's just a completely generated airport, it didn't look very good. This is an area where X Plane always had an advantage, because people could create their own airports and then put that scenery in. But for most of Flight Simulator 2020's life, that's not been available, and it's been quite a shame, really. You have these beautiful scenery like you can see here, but you'd land into certain airports, and some of them were worse than others, but they're just grey cubes on a big piece of grey tarmac, and it just didn't look like an airport at all, which is a bit of a shame. I feel like that's something that hopefully is going to be improved in the new simulator. We also had no replays, did we? So for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, no replay, still no replay. I'm still using third-party software. I don't know why. I wish they'd put replays in. Please put replays in. Please put replays in. It makes such a difference. Everyone loves to see a replay of a landing. Everyone does it. I've always done it. Always, even before making videos. It's especially important for me making videos, but it was always a fun part of Simulator. Who doesn't enjoy seeing a good landing from the outside? Another thing that we had trouble with, and has continued to plague, I think, Microsoft Flight Simulator, has been the ground handling. There's been a particular problem over the grip on the aircraft as it accelerates down the runway. If you were to look at aircraft like the general aviation airplanes, it tended to feel okay, if a little bit grippy, but general aviation airplanes can be quite grippy, if that makes sense. But airliners have very soft nose steering as you get into the higher speeds. The nose steering stops being operational usually as you get to higher speeds, so you're just using that rudder. And as that takes over, there's a careful blending of sort of ground friction into air and the aerodynamic surfaces coming into play. And I appreciate that's difficult, but we've seen it in previous simulators, and in Microsoft Flight Simulator, it struggled a lot at the start. It was just like driving around a go-kart. It would just swerve all over the place. And to this day, it still can be an issue on certain aircraft. It's definitely improved, but it particularly improved when we got the third-party add-ons coming in. So they could modify it and make it work for them and make it work for the airplane. And some of them were better than others, depending how we went. But speaking of updates, what did we get? Well, we got so many updates over the years, didn't we, in Flight Simulator 2020? It was fantastic. We had world updates coming from pretty early on. Only a few months later we started to get the world updates, and these addressed some of those issues, those missing buildings and so on that I was talking about earlier. They started to add landmarks in around the world. Started with Japan, and it's been a real pleasure how many they've added in. What a treat we've had. So many, and it got to the point where they surpassed what we sort of expected to have, and then just continued adding from there, and that's been really, really nice, especially considering you got Microsoft Flight Simulator still for that initial ticket entry price as low as £60. The scenery and weather improved over time as well, although, like I say, I both think they were both fantastic from the start, and I can't say I see any massive difference now to what we had at the start in some areas. Although there are some little effects that were added in, of course, and things like contrails, which were missing when the game launched, Simulator launched. I shouldn't call it a game. They don't call it a game. I won't call it a game. But yeah, the contrails were missing, so the nice, pretty exhaust out the back. So that was quite a big deal when they arrived. So things were added in. I think a lot of them took a little too long to arrive. It would have been nice if they'd come a bit sooner in the process, but there we go. The camera system has been something that a lot of people didn't like at the start but got used to, me included. I think it's actually very powerful, and that camera drone is something I use every video, although I know a lot of you don't use it too much, so I won't spend too much time on that. A feature of Flight Simulator has been that because it's been such a work in progress, it did launch with quite a few issues that needed addressing, and then it also is integrated so much into third-party development that we saw a lot of updates, and this has been the thing that has been slightly frustrating at times. That you want to sit down, you want to go for a flight, and there's a huge update to go for the simulator, and then your add-on aircraft might need to update as well because it's just modified things, or has the developer got around to updating that yet? So will this work or not? And this became a little bit tedious at times. It's steadied out now, I think, but there were times when an update would break something and you were just stuck for a little while until they issued the update to that. Now that is the price you pay for these continuous world updates and improvements, and I get that. So I can't complain too much, and it's been great to see them put so much care into the simulator, and that's what it comes across as, care. They've worked tirelessly, I think, to get this simulator into the position it's in now, and you can see that they really, really, really love it, because why else would they keep issuing these updates at such a frequency and with so many new things coming? And that brings me to my next thing, which is the updates that they included for free included, unbelievably, some highly detailed airplanes, including the Anybuild's A310, which is a fantastic retro complex jet airliner. I mean, that was given out for free to people with the game. I mean, a simulator. Sorry. How fantastic is that? We also saw them provide different aircraft, both free, issued in updates, and for relatively low prices. Things like their ATR were put onto the marketplace for decent prices, and these are actually really detailed aircraft, really nice. So it's been a bit of a treat to get to try some different and unusual airplanes at quite a low price put into the simulator. Although the quality has varied slightly, I think it's hard to argue any have been absolute terrible purchases, although there have been a couple that have been obviously more unpopular. It took us a while to get add-on aircraft from third-party developers. It took a long time, actually, and I think that comes down to, of course, this being such a revolution of a simulator. It is a once-in-a-generation sort of sim, this. It's so different to what we had before, and that, of course, caused third-party developers a bit of an issue in getting aircraft ready. I think it took almost a year before we got our first fully-fledged airliner, which was I believe the CRJ from Aerosoft was pretty much our first airliner in the simulator, done to any level of detail, and then we started to get some more after that, and now they came thick and fast over the last year. We've got obviously we've had so many, including this PMDG 777 you're seeing. A couple of years ago, we of course had the fantastic Phoenix Simulations A320, which I still think sets pretty much the benchmark for what's achievable in a home simulator. Absolutely incredible add-on. And then we've got loads of ones that I've had so much fun with. The 737 MAX 8 from iFlight is absolutely fantastic as well. I mean, there's too many to mention. I don't really want to start listing them, but I'll just name a couple that I've enjoyed. Just Flight, the 146 from them, was absolutely a joy, and I've used that on plenty of streams. Really, really like flying that. But there's been plenty of others. Just Flight Hawk. We've had general aviation aircraft that have been absolutely amazing. I know the A2A Comanche has been incredibly popular. I do have that, but I've not yet made a video on it. But yeah, and I've enjoyed some of the retro aircraft we've got to experience, such as the MD-11 and the Boeing 727. They were great fun. We've had the DC-9 as well. So yeah, lots and lots of aircraft came in the airliner market, and of course many military and general aviation add-ons, things like the B-2 Spirit. What a treat that was. That was absolutely a fantastic aircraft, and there are more fighter jets as well around than I had expected to see, really, to come to this simulator at payware quality. But there we go. But one thing that was really great was Asobo brought up the standard of their default aircraft. So as we started to see these third-party aircraft arrived, I was beginning to think that, well, the default aircraft will just slip away and no one's going to use them. But actually, they've improved and improved. Eventually, we got the 787 came with a big avionics update from Working Title, who now work with Asobo, and they did the most fantastic job bringing the 787 up to a usable level of quality, which coincided with when I went on to the 787. So that was absolutely fantastic. And that gives me optimism for the future of Microsoft Flight Simulator and the 2024 edition, given how much better the default aircraft are now at the end of 2020. I'm optimistic that we won't see the same issue spread with the launch of 2024, because we've got the developers are inside the team already, and also third parties like AnyBuilds, who made the A310, are also bringing us lots of the aircraft in the new simulator, which we'll talk about at the end of this video. I'm going to go through some of the aircraft that are coming in the new simulator and talk about what I think about them. So that's really good news, I think. Now, of course, we can't talk about the default A320 without talking about what actually was the first airliner to come out of any level of detail in Microsoft Flight Simulator, which was the fly-by-wire A32NX. Fly-by-wire was not in existence until shortly after the release of Flight Simulator 2020, and there was a group of people who were not happy with the default A320, as we talked about earlier in this video. It was, of course, a bit of a shame, and they saw potential with it, and they started to fix it, and they worked so hard at doing that, and have done an amazing job. The fly-by-wire A32NX, they eventually called it, and it started out as literally a folder to drop into your flight simulator to modify the default one, just to fix a few bugs and so on. And then they just kept working and kept working. Eventually they broke it free of the default aircraft altogether and put it in its own folder, and they built their own own installer, and then they brought us so much more with that installer. We've got our traffic injections, and now of course the A380X. So my channel spent a long time flying the fly-by-wire A32NX. That is the aircraft most of my tutorials have been so popular on, and it is fantastic because it's free. Everyone can get hold of what is now a detailed simulation of the A320neo. Absolutely brilliant. So I'm so amazed by the team of fly-by-wire and what they've achieved, both with their A32NX and now of course their A380X, which is an incredible add-on to just. It's a good add-on even for payware, and you don't even have to pay for it. You can contribute, of course. They do take donations, I believe, but yeah, it's there if you want it, and what a treat for everyone. So I can't talk too much really about the A32NX. It's been so fantastic, and it's such an amazing add-on that they provided, and yeah, we'll be forever grateful for that, and we'll hopefully see what they can do in Flight Simulator 2024 as time goes on. So here we are then, the end of Flight Simulator 2020, and I say that lightly. Of course, it's not the end of this simulator. There is still plenty of mileage to be had in it. It looks absolutely stunning. The aircraft are available in it are now top quality. You have a whole choice of different complex airliners available in the simulator, as well as all those other ones. Now, we of course are promised general forwards compatibility, but I don't doubt that it's going to take a bit of time for that to happen. We've heard recently that the marketplace will be delayed at launch of Flight Simulator 2024, so the question will come, well, which add-ons will come and when? So we're going to have to wait and see. That I can't answer that now, but I think 2020, if you're still flying around on VATSIM, you're loving your airliner flights, I think you're going to be sat in 2020 for a little bit longer until 2024 is fully up to speed, which is totally fine. That's normal, and that's what I'd expect for such a complicated launch. But yeah, 2024 is now coming, just a couple of days away, and that's the 19th of November. It's going to be here, 2024. So what are we looking forward to with this? Well, I've been reading through and watching their little presentations and so on. I say little, they're big presentations about it. And we obviously have different editions, varying price points, so you're going to have to choose which version you want to get, and I'm going to talk about that in this video. But yeah, it's going to come down to basically which aircraft you want to have in your simulator. But there's going to be the standard edition, which is going to be £70 now, or just under £70. Then you've got deluxe edition, which is $99.99, just under £100, and then you've got the premium deluxe edition, $129.99, and then of course the aviator edition at $199.99, basically the best part of £200. So what we're going to see in Flight Simulator 2024 is a mystery still, isn't it? I did not get any early access, sadly, but I have been following it, and I'm very interested in what's going to come. It's nice to see them. They've improved the physics simulation, so they are keen to talk about the complex aerodynamics you can now have, as well as complex shapes of airplanes. They've even got things like wake turbulence, which is really exciting to me. Wake turbulence we see in not many simulators. A digital combat simulator does have it, but it is not a thing we have in any other simulator that I've used for civilian sort of flying. So I'm excited to see things like that. They've also pushed big on their activities. That seems to be a bit of a focus, but they did insist it's not a game. They said that in their presentation. It's still a simulator, but they wanted real aviation activities to give people things to do. And this comes from not everyone takes the simulator like I do, and of course like a lot of my viewers do, which is we are in the simulator to fly airliners around and simulate real world flying, maybe general aviation, maybe fighter jets, but we're generally we can entertain ourselves. But there are people who love the look of the simulator, who love airplanes, but they don't really know what to do. They don't have a 777 route in mind that they want to go and fly, and they don't want to learn the whole airplane just to do that. They want to just go into the simulator and experience aviation. So it seems like they're adding in a lot of those features, which we will see on the channel. We did see them in 2020, of course. We had the Top Gun free mission pack, and then we also had the June expansion, and these were great fun. I enjoyed them a lot. Yeah, we're going to see a bit more of that, I think, in 2024. We've got some really exciting looking missions, and you can see that from their cover art, where they've clearly focused on having the action and the sort of mission style sim coming together. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. In fact, I think it's a little more down the path I think people will enjoy than even the Top Gun or the June expansion. Now, I enjoyed those, but they were very much of their time. You would do the missions, enjoy the music and the theming, and then maybe the new aircraft, and then that was sort of it. Whereas in Flight Simulator X back in 2006, it came with the Red Bull air races, it came with helicopter missions, it came with normal sort of stories type missions, and random scenarios of like aviation missions, like having an engine flame out when you're over a remote part of the ocean and things like that, which are really exciting and really, really fun. And they had voice acting in them and so on, and really sort of pushed you around different corners of aviation you might not have gone to. So I'm excited to see what they can do in this new sim, looking at things like oil rigs, firefighting. They've got 2 firefighting aircraft at least in the simulator, as well as the helicopters, which can have all sorts of fun missions, I'm sure. For the first time as well, we're expecting to see a career mode where you'll be able to build up your licenses, give you a bit of objective to start off on different aircrafts and at different airports and build up into flying commercial airliners. I don't personally see myself using that too much, because I'm quite happy choosing my own flights for each day, and I think that could be fun for people who don't really they want an objective to be given to them. But the activities, I think, could be really fun for everyone, certainly the whole time round. We had the Renault Air Races and so on in 2020 as well, didn't we? But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do, especially when it comes to that sort of air-ground interaction of general aviation airplanes or firefighting really close to the ground. We saw already in those preview videos of things like helicopter prop wash affecting the trees and grass around. I mean, that's exciting, isn't it? We'll see how that all comes together. They're also looking at giving us more options for moving around on the ground once you land. So I think bush flying is going to be a big thing. New animals. There were animals, of course, in Flight Simulator 2020, just like there were in FSX, although they were a little more scripted. But in 2020, they were there. I didn't find them very often, and I had to sort of search for them, and they were just sort of running on their pattern. So it was nice that they were there, but it wasn't really something you would experience. You wouldn't tend to happen across some animals very often, or certainly I didn't find that in my experience of using the simulator. And that might partly be down to having to turn the settings down on that sort of area in order to save performance for other things like my 777 or whatever aircraft I happen to be using. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how much that's improved, and if getting out of the airplane and walking around in the trees is going to be something we want to do. I think it could be really good fun. I don't know how much I'll be doing that going forwards versus, of course, the core sim of just flying around the aircraft on these routes and airliners, which is something that I'll be doing, but I appreciate not everyone will. Default airports, we talked about them earlier in 2020 being a little bit lackluster. They've shown that they have improved them. They are confident they've made big improvements to these default airports in 2024. We shall see how true that comes. Like I say, I'm concerned that without people caring for their own individual airports and that just being generated, I don't know how well it will come together. But I did see that they've improved the tarmac and taxiways and the runways, so they're not just grey blobs. So that's looking really good. I think part of the problem 2020 had was the surrounding scenery looked so fantastic that you could then find yourself really contrasted with just sort of a blank airport. And it's a shame because, of course, the bit that you see most most detail was the airport, yet the more detailed scenery was the random roads and buildings next door to it. So I mean, look at a place like Manhattan, absolutely incredible levels of detail in 2020, and to have that and then go to a grey blob airport really just contrasted not very well. So hopefully we'll see those default ones improve enough to cover that. It's now time to talk about the aircraft. So now let's look at the airplanes in Flight Simulator 2024. Now here's the standard edition. It is a large selection of airplanes, the largest ever provided in a simulator in the Microsoft series at launch, and I can totally believe that. There are loads of aircraft included. It's absolutely amazing what the standard edition gets you. You've then got Deluxe, which gives you 10 more, and then you've got Premium Deluxe, which gives you another 15, and then you've got the Aviator edition. So I'm just going to talk through them. I won't go through every single airplane in detail, but we're going to talk through some of the new ones, some of the interesting ones, and also which edition you might want to go for. So let's get started. In the standard aircraft list, we've obviously got lots and lots of our general aviation airplanes, things like the Cessna 172 Skyhawk, the 152. So these are what we've had before, but we're particularly interested in some of these new machines like this CGS Hawk Arrow 2 for general aviation. There is a focus on these small off-road aircraft like the Draco down here. The Draco X is a really cool airplane. The Draco is an airplane that I think people will... Oh, that's not worked. People will enjoy flying. It's a bush plane, a specialist bush plane that sadly I don't think is around at the moment unless it's being rebuilt. But yeah, really, really cool. So excited to see that in the simulator. But, obviously this channel's focus is on airliners. So what airliners do you get with standard? What are most people going to get? Well, of course, you get the A310, which is fantastic because that's an amazing aircraft. Really great to have it in 2020. So that's coming across. Then you've got the A320 Neo. We know AnyBuilds made the new version in Flight Simulator 2020. So that is now coming over into 2024. I haven't spent much time in it, I must be honest, in 2020. We'll see how it is in 2024. But then we have the Airbus 321 long range. This is going to be interesting for people. We, of course, do have 321 aircraft now in Flight Simulator 2020, but this is our first Neo 21, I believe. I don't think we've seen it yet, but yeah, it's going to be made by AnyBuilds, which is good news. Like I say, lots of these aircraft are being made by developers, which is going to be exciting. Asobo did launch, they made their A320 Neo for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, but we talked about the issues it had and then the freeware team that came and got it up to scratch. Asobo have made lots of great aircraft since then, but yeah, it's nice to hear that AnyBuilds, who have experience with these airplanes, are putting these ones together. And it's, again, amazing to see third-party development aircraft coming in the simulator. That's just great. It doesn't happen very often. So we've got the 321, the A330, I believe, is coming from AnyBuilds, but may or may not be. It wasn't quite clear from the presentation, but it is the Any A330 Beluga XL, so I would imagine it would be. Beluga, really excited to see this come across. My channel, before Flight Simulator 2020 launched, I was flying the Beluga, the original Beluga, not the Beluga XL, made by AnyBuilds in X Plane 11. So they have good history of Beluga aircraft. It was one of my all-time favorite add-ons. I'm so excited to see it come over to Flight Simulator finally. It's a shame we had to skip 2020, but there we go. We are at least getting the Beluga XL now in 2024. They're also AnyBuilds are making the A400M Atlas. This is going to be really fun. This is a military aircraft, of course. Let me just try and move it over for you. This is a military aircraft, and it's going to be really, really nice to see how you can use this for off-roading stuff and for taking it into dirt strips and seeing how that because big focus on general aviation and being able to walk around in the mud and so on. So military aircraft like this can do everything. They can fly high and fast. They can do long routes. They fly SIDS and stars into airports. So you can fly them on VATSIM. Hopefully the avionics are all up to that on this aeroplane. But like I say, made by AnyBuilds, I would expect it to be. But also it flies into Antarctica and grass strips and unprepared runways. I think that's going to be really, really fun to see and try out. Asobo are bringing us the 125 helicopter. Could be good for mountain rescues and so on. These airplanes we've seen before, so the 747-8 is already out with the working title avionics, so it has improved a lot in Flight Simulator 2020. You've got the Boeing Company F-18E. This is I've never been overwhelmed by the Flight Simulator 2020 F-18s. I find them a little bit... I don't like the way they feel to fly, but that's just my taste on it. And of course, we've got this new 737 MAX 8. Now, I'm not entirely sure who's developing this, but I'm optimistic because I believe Working Title are working on the avionics for it, and therefore I'm optimistic it will be in a good place. Like I say, the hope here is that these aircraft don't launch like 2020 aircraft launched, but these actually launch where the Flight Simulator 2020 aircraft are now and just pick up from there. And I'm confident they will, because we know the people working on this simulator have got the experience and they've managed to put these airliners out with fantastic detail. So I'm excited to try out that 77 MAX 8. It's fun for everyone to get one. I know, of course, we do have the iFly one, which is absolutely amazing, but that's a payware add-on. So this is now included in the standard edition, I might add, which is really cool for the new airliner to come in standard and these new long-haul Airbuses. I really, really like that. Then we've got lots of other airplanes like the Bonanza that we've seen before, some new strange concept airplanes. I don't know how much time I'll spend in things like that drone, but this one does excite me a lot. We've got the de Havilland Canada CL415. This is used for firefighting. It's their front cover airplane. Gives you a sense of what they're going for with that action mission based flying. They've also got the perfect screenshot there, the absolute dream. Dark clouds behind, airplane lit by sunshine. Absolute perfect. That's what all plane spotters want, a nice photo like that. So this is going to be exciting. The water interaction is really fun. I'm so excited to try this airplane out and hopefully have some really great missions with it. So looking forward to that. We've got this new air crane. These are quite impressive. These sort of utility helicopters. We'll see how they handle and what missions they can come up with. We've got the Twin Otter now, made by SH, who I have not heard of, but yeah, excited to try that out because that is a new one to see. We did have, of course, the Aerosoft Twin Otter in 2020, but no longer supported, I don't believe. Or certainly no longer for sale anyway. Then we've got the lots of other airplanes, that we've had before, sort of general aviation size. We've got some Robinson helicopter, by the way. This is good. This is coming from Carenado. So another good, excellent third-party developer there. So that is looking optimistic, so excited to try that out. I like piston helicopters. It's quite unnerving hearing a piston engine start. Then a concept airplane. I don't think this is out yet. They're looking at electric style airplanes, so we'll see what that is when we get to it. Other airplanes like novelty ones. I say novelty, I shouldn't say novelty. One of one, special airplanes that just there's one of in the world, like the H4 Hercules, Spruce Goose. Are included in this standard edition. So overall, I mean, an absolutely fantastic collection. You can't complain at that. You've got options from long-haul airliners, you've got short-haul airliners, you've got the classics, the A320neo and the 737 MAX. So you've got the two new ones, which is really fantastic. Then you've got the fun of these sort of utility aircraft. You've even got a couple of fighter aircraft, the F-18 and the new A-10 coming from DC Designs. And then over here we've got the Bush airplanes like the Draco and so on. So exciting. Oh yeah, and some Red Bull Air Race airplanes as well. I mean, loads, more than I can talk about really, even in just the standard edition. I think that's a really good value package. I don't think anyone could be disappointed. You can get that and then you can get going. But if you're like me and you're after something a bit more, then you're going to be looking up to the upgrade to Deluxe, for example. So here we have Deluxe, and Deluxe is going to be a £30 upgrade. Now, is it worth it to you? Well, here's the aircraft you get, the amphibious Albatross. This is new. They are quite excited about this, I think, and I'm excited about it. However, it does fit in. It's apparently the only transport category airplane that can take off and land on water. From their presentation, they said that. Now, it does fit into the similar category to the Grumman Goose. It is just a bit bigger. However, there is a certain charm to flying a big airplane around on water. So tempting, very tempting, but of course it also fits into the same category, I think, as the CL415. So it's going to be tricky. It's going to depend on the detail of that one. We've got the Cessna 404 Titan. That does interest me. That's a very cool, powerful twin-engine aircraft. And then the new 408 Sky Courier. So some interesting machines here coming along. Then Cessna 152 Aerobat, 172 Skyhawk. I mean, you're not really going to need these because you've got them. Oh, you've certainly got the 150 non-Aerobat in the normal package. Then you've got the Cessna AG truck, but of course down here I believe we had plenty of utility airplanes, even the Wright Flyer. Look at that. We had plenty of utility airplanes, including, if I can just find it, the Air Tractor. So again, fitting into a very similar category. I find these Deluxe aircraft a strange choice. There's no real must-haves that by default. Now, these may turn out to be the best add-on aircraft ever, and you just have to have them. But they will be available to buy, so you'll be able to purchase these if you want later on. However, of course, if they sell for even £10 each, that's going to be £100 to get the whole collection. So you can see that £30 sounds like a lot to add on to the simulator, but when you think £30 for 10 airplanes, well, that's actually not too bad. However, having said that, compared to what you get with the standard edition, it's just hard to justify, I think, for most people, this specific collection. Because, yeah, it's such an unusual choice. You're going to have to really, really like the Cessna 188. And who's I don't know who's going to want that over the air tractor, unless, like I say, it is an excellent quality add-on, and it may well be, a great one to have, in which case you could pick it up on its own. So tricky. I think this Aerospace Albatross could be the one that tempts people over, and I'm not surprised it's got the first place there. This Dornier Sea Star is interesting, though. It's one of one aeroplane, so that could be quite interesting to see. I honestly, to me, it seems like the Premium Deluxe is here to sort of upsell from Deluxe. Of course it is, and you're going to see why. This has the heavy hitters. This is where, if you're going to upgrade, I think this is where most people will end up, and I think that's, you can see how that's worked out quite nicely. It's that sort of classic upsell. If you're not interested in paying extra and you're getting a standard, then you're well catered for. The standard edition is an excellent promise, and I think that's where a lot of people will end up. If you're then tempted to upgrade, realistically, you're going to end up here, because this is where the excitement comes. Look at this, 747-400. Now, this is the 747 that I grew up with. This is the one that interests me the most, so I'm excited to see that. I prefer it over the Dash 8. The Dash 8, it's called Airplane, but I like the 747. And Working Title have done this, so they know their Boeing avionics now, because of course they do the Boeing avionics on the 787-10. So yeah, Working Title have this, and they've got great screenshots shown of the flight deck on the 747-400. So that is really, really cool. It's launching with the Supertanker and the Dreamlifter, not, funny enough, the normal passenger variant. I hope we get a passenger variant and not just these sort of unique ones. But for now, that's what we're getting, the 400 Supertanker and the Dreamlifter with the proper 747-400 avionics. Really cool, really unique. Love getting the Dreamlifter. I think that's going to be really good fun. And the firefighting, I hope we have some cool missions with the 747. I think that will be amazing. Next, of course, 787-10. I can't skip over it. It's a shame. Why is it hidden in Premium Deluxe? I wish it was in the standard. I wish everyone had the 787. I love the 787. It's now what I fly in the real world. It's a great airplane. They've done an amazing job on the avionics. I think it'd be fantastic if everyone had access to it. But there we go. It is once again hidden in Premium Deluxe along with the 747-400. So if you like your heavy Boeings, you're going to have to come up into this category. Same for, of course, the C-17 Globemaster. This is coming from Miltech. So this is an interesting one, because it's another premium, or another specific developer who've worked on it. So I'm excited to see how that comes along. It's going to be, again, similar to the A400 aircraft in terms of what it's designed for. They sort of work along side by side in similar ranges. But this package for another £30. So this is now £60 over the price of the standard edition, and you're going to get some big hitters here. Next is the Carenado Saab 340. This excites me a lot. Saab 340, an airplane I've seen a lot in the world. I've flown in previous home simulators. Really like it. So I think that could be good fun. Again, coming from a third-party developer, exciting to see what they've done with it. I say this, I don't mean to be insulting when I say third-party developers are good, that we got them, because, of course, not all third-party aircraft have been great, but also I like it because I know that Asobo just don't have the ability to create all these airplanes on their own. There's only so many people that work there, and they're working on the simulator. So yeah, this is exciting to see some of these coming from these third party, definitely. I also am excited for this Chinook coming from Blackbird. I don't think I've used a Blackbird aircraft, so excited to try out the Chinook. It's a cool airplane to see in the simulator. And then some more off-road aircraft. Arslin aircraft, we had this already in 2020. New Pilatus PC-24, this could be exciting. But yeah, big hitters here, let's face it. It's the 747s, the 78 for me, the C-17, that helicopter as well, coming from Hype Group. This looks really exciting. Big monster helicopter, H225. So This is a very compelling addition, and again, £30, but this time for 15 airplanes, of which I'd say you've got 5 or 6 that are really, really exciting. So I don't know why the Citation Longitude's hidden up here. I don't know how popular that was in 2020. I didn't fly it too much, although one of my first streams was in it, but there we go. This is an exciting package. So this is quite probably where I'll end up. Finally then, up to the Aviators Edition. Now this is pricey. This is £200 or just under for this, and it is an interesting selection of airplanes. A lot of these are airplanes that we saw from updates over the time of Flight Simulator 2020. You can actually see that most of these don't say new next to them. In fact, I don't think any of them do. So these are ones, this is like a collection of these classic famous flyers and so on that they've done over time. For example, I already have the DHC-4 Caribou. I believe did I fly the Curtis on the channel? I've certainly flown the ATR, which is fantastic, and the Antonov 225, which was also fantastic. So lots of great airplanes in here, and it's certainly not, I'm not going to argue that it's bad value. If you want as many airplanes as possible, the Skyvan, I love the Skyvan, that was good fun as well. And the Stratoliner, look at that. And I do have the 707. Hopefully that improves over time. Like I say, there are some issues with it right now. Hopefully that has improved as time goes on. But yeah, this is going to get you all these ones. The C47, that was good fun, and the glider. Now, yeah, whether you want that or not is up to you, whether you think you can get away with just picking off the aircraft that you want individually. I'm not going to buy this one because I'm a little bit confused right now, as I've already bought a lot of these airplanes in 2020. So do I need to repurchase them? How's that going to work? So I don't think I'm going to need to pick up that. And like I say, with no new aircraft, I won't be going for the Aviator Edition because I've already got them in 2020. So hopefully I'll be able to use them again, like the ATR, the Davenant. But I don't know. That is a question I have for you guys. If anyone has heard how that's going to work, if I already have the DHC4 or the ATR, will it work in 2020? Will it be the same one that they're providing here, or will it be different? I don't know. So Premium Deluxe, I think, is if you're serious about your simulator and you want to really get into it and just have as much fun as possible with some really interesting airplanes, and you want your heavy Boeings, then you're going to be here, aren't you? Premium Deluxe. I think this is not bad. It does then get you these, which means you get this nice Albatross included as a bit of a perk in the Dornier Sea Star, which I think could be good fun. And then, of course, Standard is fantastic. And I think this is what's going to be the best for most people. I can't see you running out of things to do in the Standard Edition. There's just so many. But, you know, selfishly, I like the Premium Deluxe. I think everyone should fly the 787-10, so there it is. And it's a great quality add-on at this point. Working Title have done an amazing job, which gives me great confidence in their 747s. But yeah, there we go. That's my thoughts on it. I'll probably be getting Premium Deluxe, although I may eventually have to give in and go for the full-on Aviator set. But like I say, I do have most of those airplanes already, and I don't fly them too much separately, mainly because my channel is airliner focused. But yeah, an amazing selection of airplanes. Absolutely fantastic that we get to discuss it like this. Look at it all. Amazing. Really, really, really exciting. So that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Loads and loads of information in there. Lots of things I haven't been able to cover. There's just too much to talk about. So do please subscribe if you'd like to see more videos. We'll of course be covering the launch of Flight Simulator 2024. I'll be trying to get videos on as many airplanes as I can. I want to try as many of those new ones out. Really, really exciting. And we'll also be running tutorials as well, of course, on the different airplanes. So do please subscribe if you'd like to see that. There'll be plenty of videos, guides, and live streams coming on the channel when I get the chance to do that, hopefully straight after launch. So yeah, looking forward to that. Thank you so much to all of you as well for watching this channel. This has been now over 4 years of Flight Simulator 2020, and of course it started before that with X Plane. And it's amazing to see how many of you come and comment and engage with Flight Simulator and Flight Simulation at home and with me and talk about it. I absolutely love it. So thank you so much for coming along, watching the channel, and subscribing and being a part of it. It means the world, and it's been such a fun adventure with Flight Simulator 2020. It's hard to believe we're here now, looking at the dawn of a new one. So do join us for that. I think it's been great fun, and yeah, we'll see you again in another video soon. Thank you. Bye bye.